Osa, the Goose Girl, and Little Mats. The year that Niles Hogeson traveled with the wild geese, everyone was talking about two little children, a boy and a girl, who tramped through the country. They were from Sunnerborough Township in Smallland, and had once lived with their parents and 4 brothers and sisters in a little cabin on the heath. While the 2 children, Osa and Mats, were still small, a poor homeless woman came to their cabin one night and begged for shelter. Although the place could hardly hold the family, she was taken in, and the mother spread a bed for her on the floor. In the night, she coughed so hard that the children fancied the house shook. By morning, she was too ill to continue her wanderings. The children's father and mother were as kind to her as they could be. They gave up their bed to her and slept on the floor, while the father went to the doctor and brought her medicine. The first few days the sick woman behaved like a savage. She demanded constant attention and never uttered a word of thanks. Later she became more subdued, and finally begged to be carried out to the heath and left there to die. When her host would not hear of this, she told them that the last few years she had roamed about with a band of gypsies. She herself was not of gypsy blood, but was the daughter of a well-to-do farmer. She had run away from home and gone with the nomads. She believed that a gypsy woman who was angry at her had brought this sickness upon her. Nor was that all. The gypsy woman had also cursed her, saying that all who took her under their roof or were kind to her should suffer a like fate. She believed this, and therefore begged them to cast her out of the house and to never see her again. She did not want to bring misfortune down upon such good people, but the peasants refused to do her bidding. It was quite possible that they were alarmed, but they were not the kind of folk who could turn out a poor, sick person. Soon after that she died, and then along came the misfortunes. Before there had never been anything but happiness in that cabin. Its inmates were poor, yet not so very poor. The father was a maker of weaver combs, and the mother and children helped him with his work. Father made the frames, mother and the older children did the bidding, while the smaller ones planed the teeth and cut them out. They worked from morning until night, but the time passed pleasantly, especially when father talked of the days when he traveled about in foreign lands and sold weavers' combs. Father was so jolly that sometimes mother and the children would laugh until their sides ached at his funny quips and jokes. The weeks following the death of the poor vagabond woman lingered in the minds of the children like a horrible nightmare. They knew not if the time had been long or short, but they remembered that they were always having funerals at home. One after another they lost their brothers and sisters. At last it was very still and sad in the cabin. The mother kept up some measure of courage, but the father was not a bit like himself. He could no longer work nor jest, but sat from morning till night, his head buried in his hands, and only brooded. Once, that was after the 3rd burial, the father had broken out into wild talk, which frightened the children. He said that he could not understand why such misfortunes should come upon them. They had done a kindly thing in helping the sick woman. Could it be true, then, that the evil in this world was more powerful than the good? The mother tried to reason with him, but she was unable to soothe him. A few days later, the eldest was stricken. She had always been the father's favorite, so when he realized that she, too, must go, he fled from all the misery. The mother never said anything, but she thought it was best for him to be away, as she feared that he might lose his reason. He had brooded too long over this one idea, that God had allowed a wicked person to bring about so much evil. After the father went away, they became very poor. For a while he sent them money, but afterwards things must have gone badly with him, for no more came. The day of the eldest daughter's burial, the mother closed the cabin and left home with the 2 remaining children, Osa and Mats. She went down to Skane to work in the beet fields, and found a place at the Jordberga sugar refinery. She was a good worker, and had a cheerful and generous nature. Everybody liked her. Many were astonished because she could be so calm after all that she had passed through. But the mother was very strong and patient. When anyone spoke to her When anyone spoke to her of her two sturdy children, she only said, "I shall soon lose them also," without a quaver in her voice or a tear in her eye. She had accustomed herself to expect nothing else. But it did not turn out as she feared. Instead, the sickness came upon herself. She had gone to Skane in the beginning of summer. Before autumn she was gone, and the children were left alone. While their mother was ill, she had often said to the children that they must remember that she never regretted having let the sick woman stop with them. It was not hard to die when one had done right, she said, for then one could go with a clear conscience. Before the mother passed away, she tried to make some provisions for her children. She asked the people with whom she lived to let them remain in the room which she had occupied. If the children had only had a shelter, they would not become a burden to anyone. She knew that they could take care of themselves. Osa and Mats were allowed to keep the room on condition that they would tend the geese, as it was always hard to find children willing to do that work. It turned out, as the mother expected, they did maintain themselves. The girl made candy and the boy carved wooden toys, which they sold at the farmhouses. They had a talent for trading, and soon began buying eggs and butter from the farmers, which they sold to the workers at the sugar refinery. Osa was the older, and by the time she was 13, she was as responsible as a grown woman. She was quiet and serious, while Mats was lively and talkative. His sister used to say to him that he could out-cackle the geese. When the children had been at Jodenberg for 2 years, there was a lecture given one evening at the schoolhouse. Evidently, it was meant for grown-ups, but the 2 Smallland children were in the audience. They did not regard themselves as children, and few persons thought of them as such. The lecturer talked about the dread disease called the White Plague, which every year carried off so many people in Sweden. He spoke very plainly, and the children understood every word. After the lecture, they waited outside the schoolhouse. When the lecturer came out, they took hold of his hands and walked gravely up to him, asking if they might speak to him. The stranger must have wondered at the 2 rosy, baby-faced children standing there talking with an earnestness more in keeping with people thrice their age, but he listened graciously to them. They related what had happened in their home, and asked the lecturer if he thought their mother and their sisters and brothers had died of the sickness he had described. "Very likely," he answered. "It could hardly have been any other disease." If only mother and father had known what the children learned that evening, they might have protected themselves. If they had burned the clothing of the vagabond woman, if they had scoured and aired the cabin, and not used the old bedding, all of whom the children mourned might have been living yet. The lecturer said that he could not say positively, but he believed that none of their dear ones would have been sick had they understood how to guard against the infection. Osa and Mats awaited a while before putting the next question, for that was the most important of all. It was not true that the gypsy woman had sent the sickness because they had befriended the one with whom she was angry. It was not something special that had stricken only them. The lecturer assured them that no person had the power to bring sickness upon another in that way. Thereupon the children thanked him and went to their room. They talked until late that night. The next day they gave notice that they could not tend geese another year, but must go elsewhere. Where were they going? Why, to try to find their father. They must tell him that their mother and the other children had died of a common ailment, and not something special brought upon them by an angry person. They were very glad that they had found out about this. Now it was their duty to tell their father of it, for probably he was still trying to solve the mystery.